My 78-year-old grandmother got the most brilliant revenge on her obnoxious neighbors, and it was completely legal. What she did was so clever that the entire neighborhood still talks about it 2 years later. Hi, I'm Jessica, and today I'm sharing how my sweet little grandma turned into a strategic mastermind when pushed too far. My grandma Evelyn has lived in the same house for 45 years. She's the kind of neighbor everyone loves, brings cookies to new families, waters plants when people are on vacation, never complains about anything. But last year, the house next door was sold to the Mitchell family, and they were difficult. Actually, that's being too nice. They were absolute nightmares. It started small. Their music was too loud. Their parties went until 3 a.m. on weeknights. Their garbage bins were always overflowing into Grandma's driveway, but Grandma, being the sweet lady she is, didn't say anything at first. Then things got worse. Mr. Mitchell started parking his huge truck deliberately blocking Grandma's mailbox. When she politely asked him to move it, he laughed and said, "I park where I want, old lady." Their teenage son began throwing his basketball against the fence they shared, bang, 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 for hours every day. When Grandma asked if he could play somewhere else because she worked nights and slept during the day, Mrs. Mitchell screamed at her, "Kids will be kids, deal with it." But the final straw came when they cut down Grandma's prize-winning rose bushes. These were roses she'd been growing for 20 years. They claimed the branches were hanging over their property line by 2 inches. Grandma came home from the grocery store to find her beautiful roses, her pride and joy, chopped down and thrown in her trash can like garbage. That night, she called me crying. "Jessica," she said, "I've tried being nice. I've tried being understanding, but enough is enough." Now, you have to understand something about my grandma. She raised 5 kids during the 1960s, worked as a school principal for 30 years, and survived my grandfather's terrible cooking for 43 years. This woman is tougher than she looks. The next morning, Grandma started her research. She went to the city planning office, the homeowners association, and even called some old friends who worked in local government. Turns out the Mitchells had been breaking about 15 different city ordinances and HOA rules. But instead of just reporting them, Grandma had a much better plan. First, she started documenting everything. Every noise violation, every parking infraction, every piece of trash that blew into her yard. She kept a detailed log with photos and timestamps. Then she began phase 1 of what I now call Operation Sweet Revenge. Phase 1, Grandma planted the most beautiful flower garden right along their shared property line. But these weren't just any flowers. They were specifically chosen to attract every bee, butterfly, and bird in a 3-mile radius. Sunflowers, lavender, bee balm, coneflowers. It was gorgeous and incredibly attractive to flying creatures. The Mitchells couldn't enjoy their backyard barbecues anymore because of all the bugs. They complained to Grandma, who sweetly said, "I'm just trying to help the environment, dear." Phase 2. Grandma discovered that their fence was actually 6 inches onto her property. Instead of making a big deal about it, she hired a surveyor and quietly had the exact property line marked. Then, she installed a beautiful new fence, exactly where it belonged. This meant the Mitchells' expensive outdoor kitchen was now crammed into a much smaller space. Phase 3 was my personal favorite. Grandma found out that the city had noise ordinances that were strictly enforced between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. So she started a daily morning routine. Every single day, at exactly 7:01 a.m., She would begin her yard work, mowing, leaf blowing, hammering on various home improvement projects. The Mitchells, who loved sleeping in after their late-night parties, were now being woken up every morning by the sweet sounds of Grandma's lawn maintenance. But Grandma's masterpiece was still coming. She discovered that the Mitchells were running an unlicensed car repair business out of their garage. Cars coming and going at all hours, oil stains in the driveway, the works. Instead of just reporting them, Grandma got creative. She started taking evening walks right past their house, perfectly legal since it's a public sidewalk. But during these walks, she happened to take lots of photos of the beautiful sunset and lovely neighborhood architecture. These photos, which accidentally captured all the illegal business activity, were then shared with her photography club, which included her friend Margaret, who worked for the city zoning department. Within 2 weeks, the Mitchells received a cease and desist order, multiple fines, and a court date for operating an illegal business in a residential zone. The final touch? When they tried to sell their house to escape the fines and legal troubles, Grandma made sure every potential buyer knew about the wonderful neighborhood wildlife by prominently displaying her bee-friendly garden and mentioning to anyone who would listen how much she loved her buzzing friends. The Mitchells moved out 6 months later. As their moving truck pulled away, Grandma was in her front yard watering her beautiful flowers and humming a happy tune. The new neighbors, the Johnson family, are lovely people. When they introduced themselves, Grandma brought them homemade cookies and said, "I hope you'll love this neighborhood as much as I do. It's so peaceful here." The best part? Everything Grandma did was completely legal and actually improved the neighborhood. Her garden is gorgeous, her property is properly marked, and she helped eliminate an illegal business that was bothering everyone. Mrs. Johnson told me last week, "Your grandmother is amazing. She's like the neighborhood guardian angel."